Waking up from a hangover, I stared at my phone in shock. Dozens of missed calls. Friends from the industry, my agent, even some partners, all buzzing with alerts. My WeChat notifications were stacked at 99 plus. I was completely baffled. Before I could even start figuring things out, my screen lit up abruptly. It was Howard, my brother from the Beijing elite scene, calling. I answered with a hint of suspicion. Hey, Howard. What happened last night? You know my damn habit. Once I black out, everything's gone. The line went dead silent. I was lost. Hey. You still there? Why are you not talking? You're still listening, right? Nothing's wrong, is it? Why'd so many people call me this morning? I kept rambling. Suddenly, Howard's heavy breathing cut through the phone. Like he was furious. Mason, you don't remember anything from last night. You're a total piece of shit. I heard Howard gritting his teeth. What the hell? Now I'm a bad guy. You know damn well I forget everything when I drink. I grimaced, wondering what kind of game Howard was playing. I didn't dump him. Howard. Why the hell am I getting called a player? And honestly, I'd love to play the field, but he never even gave me the chance. Before I could ask anything else, the line went dead. I stared at the disconnected call, annoyance bubbling up as I opened Weibo and automatically clicked into Howard's page. The most recent post was from last night, just after midnight, but the content left me completely baffled. Banning Mason? Banning me? Why the hell would he do that? Before I could figure out what I'd done to piss off this big shot, suddenly there was a ding, and a WeChat message popped up. A friend from last night's drink session sent me a video, just under 5 minutes long. I frowned and opened it. The vibe felt off, and my gut told me this had to be why Howard acted so weird today. The screen wobbled with neon lights, and there I was, blacked out, passed out on Howard's lap, screaming like a drunk lunatic. Howard's actually pretty decent. Someone with his hygiene quirks didn't even flinch at my stink of booze, just scowled at me like I'd lost my mind over the wine. But then things took a sharp turn. On screen, I was clinging to a bottle, pawing at Howard while he sat stiff as a board. My stomach dropped watching it. I had no idea what the hell was happening next. Then bam! The two of us suddenly collapsed onto the couch, and there I was, kissing Howard full on the mouth, babbling like a madman. Hey, Howard, how hot do you think I am? Am I even sexy? Stick with me. I'll make you rich and famous. How about this much a month? From now on, you're my boyfriend. My hand trembled, and I slammed the phone down. What the hell did I even do yesterday? Coming back to my senses from the shock, it hit me. So I actually just confessed to Howard, remembering Howard's Weibo and the tone that seemed to want to tear me apart. I felt like crying but had no tears. Oh God, this wasn't on purpose at all. How long is it gonna take me to stop being a total mess when I drink? Pacing around the room for ages, I finally decided I had to call Howard and apologize. The second the phone rang, it was straight cut off. Howard had already hung up. Then came a message from him. Come see me at the office this afternoon. At 2 o'clock sharp, I bundled up and showed up at Howard's office. Howard was still in a meeting when I arrived. Mason, please wait a moment. Howard's still in a meeting. I gave the assistant a nod. She turned and shut the door behind her. Howard's assistant was sharp, polished, and seriously hot. Truth is, I'd tested the waters with Howard more than once about his sexuality. But every time, he just gave me that same blank look. Not yes, not no. Thinking about Howard's icy detachment, I could have bitten through my own teeth in frustration. Howard and I have known each other since we were kids, like brothers who shared the same pair of pants for years. Howard hates talking to people, but I'm the complete opposite. I've always loved striking up conversations with strangers, constantly drifting through crowded, lively spots. Then, once I started college, I got hooked on acting, plunged headfirst into the entertainment world, riding every high and low. Getting off track here, but it's wild how people keep saying that me and Howard, two opposite ends of the spectrum, managed to stay friends for so long. Honestly, it's a miracle. I used to get a real kick out of how close me and Howard were. Until I hit puberty, that is, something just changed. Teenage boys are always curious about that one thing, gathering around to peek at stuff no one talks about. I wasn't immune. I saw a few things too, back then, but that night, my dream was full of Howard, his serious face, so young and untouched. There was something new in him. an air I'd never seen before, this quiet kind of heat, flushed with raw, forbidden charm. Woke up the next morning, mortified, rubbing my jeans like there was no tomorrow. After that, I couldn't look Howard in the eye anymore. Howard frowning, Howard breathing hard, Howard reaching for a drink. Getting ahead too soon left me totally lost half the time. I didn't fit in with other guys my age. Not at all. Howard became my only fantasy, my biggest secret obsession. And Howard was a man. For me back then, that kind of crush felt like a grand, wild lie, something I shouldn't even be thinking about. But damn it, I still wanted him. When Howard was happy, so was I. If he got close to someone else, my chest tightened up. I've been blindly crushing on Howard for years, lost in my own head, never said a word. Until last night's insane party. Thinking back on the chaotic scene in the video, I couldn't help but want to slap myself right between the eyes. And honestly, I actually did it. God, what a mess. Still couldn't stop. Gave myself a solid one, the sound echoing too loudly in the quiet office. If Howard ever caught on to my little secret, if he hated me so much that we couldn't even stay friends, I squeezed my eyes shut. My chest ached, sharp and tight. Then what the hell would I do? Why'd you hit yourself for no reason? Howard's voice came soft, clear, like water over stone. It snapped me straight up in my seat. I looked up. Tailored suit, hair perfectly groomed, every detail just right. Howard had always been elegance personified, refined, untouchable. Even if those distant eyes were filled with disgust, they'd still be stunning. I opened my mouth but couldn't form a word. What the hell was I supposed to say? That I've been dreaming of Howard, the so-called prince of Beijing's elite, or that I'm some kind of creep for wanting someone who's like a brother to me since we were kids. I hung my head, shaking it slowly. Howard moved with effortless grace, unbuttoned his coat, then settled into the chair at the back of the office. Those thin gold-rimmed glasses perched on his nose gave him that extra layer of cool detachment. And I couldn't look away, just stared, dumbstruck. I had to admit it. Howard was dangerously attractive, to me, at least. I can't even imagine what a mess I'd be if Howard just waved at me. Mason, yeah, anything you want to say about yesterday? I couldn't help but think back to last night. My eyes drifting again to Howard's lips, faintly swollen. I cleared my throat awkwardly. A sudden, unnameable frustration flared in my chest. I was so drunk last night, I can't even remember what it felt like kissing Howard's lips. It was the first time I'd ever hated this damn habit of forgetting everything when I'm drunk. Yesterday, it was my fault. Yeah, I messed up. I wasn't trying to kiss you or anything. I clenched my fists, speaking like a man ready for execution, bracing myself for this guy's judgment. Ban me all you want. I'll survive somehow. But if Howard really decides to cut me off from now on, that'd be a death sentence. Still, the thought made me glance back at Howard's swollen lips before I could stop myself. Howard, believe me, it was just a misunderstanding. I was upset, that's all, so my voice cut off mid-sentence. How could I forget? Yesterday's bad mood excuse was just me forcing Howard to drink. And it's totally tied to the guy right in front of me. I let out a dry laugh. A baseless rumor had me on edge like the world was ending. Can't even imagine what'd happen if I couldn't be with Howard. I really can't face it. Howard dipped his gaze, and I couldn't read a thing in his eyes. Yeah, I get it. I know you were down yesterday. After a long pause, he adjusted the delicate gold frames on his nose and spoke calmly. Like the guy who'd been kissed senseless by his best friend on the couch last night wasn't him at all. Let yesterday be yesterday. I was out of line. Shouldn't have posted that stuff about banning people or whatever. I froze, stunned. Didn't expect Howard to take it so light. I'll have my assistant sort it out on Weibo later. Last night was stupid of me. I know you'd never. Howard's voice was suddenly cut off by a sharp knock at the door. My heart, still burning moments ago, went ice cold. I was so close to charging over to Howard, demanding answers, needing to taste his lips, wanted to tell him I love him. But I can't. Howard wouldn't like it. Howard, the head of CIE groups waiting in the conference room. Howard gave a barely noticeable nod toward the door, clearly dismissing me. All right, you're good to go now. Don't mess with us filming. Mason, Howard said, grabbing the files off the desk and rising without a word. Howard stopped mid-step. What? Something else you need to say? I just opened my mouth, silence hanging in the air. So, are we still good brothers? Howard didn't answer right away. Just as I was racked with unease, Howard finally spoke. His voice edged with an odd, unspoken chill. If that's what you think, then it is. Howard strode out of the office, leaving only silence behind. I touched my chest, hollow and empty. Then, a reckless thought flickered through me. What if I don't just want to be your brother? Could we, maybe be more than that? After leaving Howard's office, I couldn't focus. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, Howard's cold stare and those words looping through my head like a nightmare. I could barely sleep. Even during filming the next morning, I spaced out so often I nearly derailed the whole shoot. The director called cut a dozen times before finally deciding I needed to step back and regroup. Leo kept handing me water, fanning me with his hand. Those heavy costume layers were cooking me from the inside out. Mason, what's going on with you today? Leo frowned, watching me drenched in sweat. Is it Howard blocking the Weibo posts that's messing with your head? He already posted a clarification, didn't he? What's really going on? I downed half a bottle of ice-cold water, finally cooling off a little. Sorry, Leo. I gave a dry laugh. Today's just not my day. Got behind everyone else. I'll get everyone a milk tea in a bit. Leo crossed his arms, studying me like I was a puzzle. After a long pause, he leaned in and whispered, "You're going through a breakup?" My eyes shot wide open. How the hell did you know? Leo's face lit up with knowing smugness. No, I'm not hiding a relationship from the company. Leo looked at me like I just walked into a war zone, then gave my shoulder a slow, knowing pat. Relax. Young people, you know? I've been there. No, Leo. I swear I'm not. I hurried to deny it, the panic so thick it felt like I'd be branded no matter how hard I tried. Leo fell silent for a beat, then hit me with the soul-searching question. Male? I went quiet. A silence that said it all. Mason. You really are. Wait, no. The rumors about you and Howard can't actually be. Seeing me stare at the floor, Leo's jaw dropped. After a long pause, he leaned in close, voice low. Seriously, I just slumped my head and shook it slowly. He doesn't even know. Leo fell silent again, his gaze softening with sudden understanding. Young man, don't sweat the small stuff. Love and all that. Howard's type. Honestly, just let it go. After Leo left, I scrolled through the Weibo trending topics about my and Howard's ship, feeling strangely hollow. Howard's denial post popped up. Every comment in that thread felt like it could have been real if only. Best friends to lovers? Too hot to handle? A star and a mogul? This is the ultimate fantasy plot twist. I'm obsessed. Can they just film a scene with nothing but kissing? Just thinking about it gives me chills. Mason, put the phone down. Hurry up and get ready. Rolling in a sec, I shut off my phone, forcing Howard out of my head, then took a deep breath to reset my focus. Here we go. If I throw myself into this, really commit, maybe I'll become the real deal. Would Howard finally see me differently then? I forced myself to blank out the mess in my head and focus on the scene. A flash of Howard came to mind. Intense, locked in work mode. That elegant, poised Howard, the prince of Beijing's elite scene. Could someone like him ever drift off mid-task? Because he was thinking about someone else? After a brutal day, I finally had a moment to breathe. Just about to call Howard to catch up when I got a call from Leo right as I reached the front door. Hey Mason, what's up, Leo? Leo sounded hesitant on the other end. Look straight to the point. The company wants you to live stream and address that whole Howard blacklisting thing. And ideally, while clearing the air. Maybe even reconnect with Howard. I'm not exactly fresh out of the industry. I get the hint. A slow smirk tugged at my lips. Don't worry. I'm fully on board. Leo, alright, you get it, that's all that matters. In our line of work, there's only one way to make it. Rise to the top. Don't take Leo's straight talk personally. He's just blunt about stuff like love and relationships. Don't sweat the small stuff. After hanging up, I stared at my phone screen, still on the WeChat chat with Howard. A single line kept getting typed, then deleted, retyped, and erased again. Still couldn't send it. Frustrated, I just opened the live stream instead. After years in entertainment, one thing's for sure. I've got looks going for me. And honestly, that's what brought me most of my fans. As soon as I went live, the stream flooded with followers. Views skyrocketing in seconds. I blinked at the rapid-fire barrage of chat messages scrolling past. I was almost overwhelmed, but every now and then, a bold fan from one of those couple ships slipped through, zeroing in on me, forcing my mind back to *Kim Star. Out of nowhere, my throat tightened up. Hey everyone, good evening. With the live stream now packed with fans, I got to work on the task Leo gave me. Honestly, I just decided to go live on a whim today. You all know Howard and I are close. Like brothers, really. But you also remember that thing he posted on Weibo about shutting me down or whatever. The chat was flooding with comments, a steady stream of them. I sighed, kind of tired. Don't laugh, okay? Yeah, Howard and I had a little fallout, but I winked at the camera. He's already forgiven me, just doing a live stream to clear things up, that's all. Stop guessing, okay? The chat exploded even more. As the stream got shared around, a flood of couple fans poured in. Among them were plenty of trolls, deliberately throwing fuel on the fire, pushing fans to dig into my relationship with Howard. Watching the scrolling chat, Howard's words suddenly popped into my head. If you think it is, then it is. As for what exactly my relationship with Howard is, truth's in your hands. Fame or shame, let others decide. Whatever you believe it to be, that's what it is. Amid the chaos of the chat, I hit end live without hesitation. Staring at Howard's WeChat conversation page, my stomach twisted. I'll admit, I didn't just say that to finish Leo's task. Part of me actually wanted people to see us as a couple. But then I remembered Howard's usual distant look, and guilt hit hard. Just lost in thought when, bam, his video call came through instantly. My hand jolted, nearly dropping the phone again. Howard? What's up? I couldn't bring myself to look Howard in the eyes, not even through the screen. Maybe it was those vague words earlier that left me shaken. I faked being busy, my nerves on edge, dreading that Howard was calling to chew me out this time. Nothing much. Relief washed over me instantly. There's a business mixer tomorrow night. Come with me. The calm tone in Howard's voice threw me off. It was so normal, I couldn't help but feel a little flutter. Business mixers weren't exactly foreign to me. Back when Howard first took over the family firm, curiosity had dragged me along a few times, but I'd found it boring, the people always playing roles, pretending to be someone they weren't. Lost interest, and Howard never asked me to go again. If my memory's right, guys at these things usually show up with their partners, or at least a close friend they're seeing. Now Howard was inviting me outright. What did that even mean? In just seconds, Howard's words spun through my head like a loop. In just a few seconds, Howard's words looped through my mind like a record stuck on repeat. The reply that finally slipped out was sharp and simple, just one word. Was he actually into me? Could Howard actually be into me? Then I shook my head, instantly shutting down the thought. No way. I'd love to stretch these 24 hours out forever, just so I could finally arrive at the gala in time. Howard steps out of his car right then. My eyes light up almost instantly. Howard's good-looking. I've known that since I was a kid, since I first started noticing things during puberty. My feelings for Howard have been anything but ordinary. Almost effortlessly handsome, Howard never fails to pull me in. Constantly, relentlessly. Right now, Howard's in a crisp white suit, his sharp features carrying that calm, effortless superiority like he was born to command the room. Those always distant lilac eyes catch the light like scattered shards of glass. Brighter than any gem. Just standing there, Howard's like some elegant aristocrat cat. It was only after years of quietly pining for Howard that I stumbled on this. One sunlit afternoon, classy, poised, and to this day, it only gets stronger, makes you want to move closer without even thinking. I knew at 16 that I couldn't resist Howard, and honestly, I didn't want to. My eyes locked with Howard's in midair, and I couldn't stop myself from striding toward him. Howard. What a coincidence. Howard gave a slight nod, his gaze sweeping over me. Flat, unreadable, nothing more. Come on. Let's go in together. I stood not far behind Howard, practically devouring the sight of his pale neck with my eyes. Honestly, I'm grateful my parents gave me a few extra inches over Howard. Mason? What? I blinked, snapping back from staring at Howard. Howard had turned to look at me, a faint frown pulling at his elegant brow. What are you gaping at? Get in already. Coming. The corporate mixer was long-winded and a total drag. Would have never set foot here again if it weren't for Howard. Tired, I set down my glass, leaning back against an unobtrusive corner with a bit too much ease. From where I was, the light softened Howard's features, making his eyes and brows look almost tender. I couldn't help but twitch my lips upward. Not tired. The rest of that thought stayed locked in my throat. Being with Howard, I could never be tired. Howard glanced around, then drained the last of his champagne. You stay here for a bit. I've got to meet a partner. Then you. I started to say I wanted to go with him, but Howard was already walking away. When I finally spotted Howard again in a quiet corner of the venue, he was laughing and chatting effortlessly with an elegantly dressed woman. A faint smile played across his features, something I rarely saw on him. Watching the scene, a sudden, wordless ache washed over me. My fingers tightened around the wine glass without thinking. The woman laughing with Howard spotted me first and waved casually. I forced a polite smile, just enough for social decency, and walked over. To my surprise, she was the very same Mia from the rumors, Xia family's heiress, set to marry Howard, the foreign-returning prodigy designer, a rich girl with flair. Perfect match for Howard, really. My grip on the glass went slack all at once. Chuan, she said. You're here. Let me introduce. This is Mia, Xia family's daughter and Tang Group's new partner. Mia gave a small nod, smiling. And this, Howard said, is Mason, the big star. He's mine, I added, quick and light. Howard introduced me, calm as ever. I kept my eyes down, extending a hand first to Mia, trying hard to act like an adult, like the famous man Howard claimed I was. Hi, I said. I'm Mason. Mia smiled back, smooth and flawless in every way. The more perfect she was, the more restless I felt. I couldn't wait to get Howard away from her. When I accidentally knocked over my drink for the third time, Howard finally spoke up. Chuan, what's wrong? Seeing the concern in Howard's eyes, a sudden wave of relief washed over me, and I even went out of my way to glance at Mia. What surprised me was how Mia looked back at both Howard and me. There was this strange, teasing spark in her expression. Howard, my hand hurts. It's trembling a little. I can't control it. You should blow on it, just a little breath, and it'll be fine. Howard froze, then grabbed my hand tight and pulled out his phone to call 120. I blinked hard. I realized too late that I'd gone way too far, and instinctively pushed back. No, it's fine. No need to go to the hospital. Howard paused, his grip tightening, and for a split second, his face went blank. I stammered, too nervous to look at him. Probably my lie was painfully obvious. Howard, of all people, didn't miss it for a second. Howard's face went cold in an instant. Mason, where exactly is your hand hurting? No, it's not. Nothing hurts anymore, I mumbled, sulking. Howard gave me a sideways glance, his eyes flickering with the flush of being teased. Mason, you always do this, spouting nonsense and pulling stupid stunts. We're not kids anymore. Is messing with me really that funny? Howard pulled off his gold-rimmed glasses, rubbing the bridge of his nose like he was worn down. No more jokes like this. Howard and Mia exchanged polite apologies, then turned and walked away from the absurd party. I stood frozen where I was, completely lost. Mason, right? Mia leaned in, curiosity in her eyes as she studied me. It hit me too late that Howard seemed pretty upset. He thought I'd been mocking him on purpose in front of everyone. A sudden wave of panic rose up from my chest. Was Howard actually mad at me? I was rushing to apologize to Howard when Mia stopped me dead in my tracks. Move! My face darkened, blocking me from chasing after my boyfriend. Yeah, I wasn't exactly being gracious, especially since this was the girl everyone said would be my future fiancé. Mia watched me flustered and gave a lazy smirk. Mason, what's the rush? What's meant for you will find its way to you. What isn't won't come no matter how hard you chase. Mia clapped me on the shoulder, left me with a few vague words, then walked off, left me completely baffled. But right now, the real priority was apologizing to Howard. By the time I got to the gate, Tang family's car had already vanished. I stared at the empty road, lost in thought. Feels like something inside me's hollow too. Like a long, damp rain that never stops. Half an hour later, I slipped into Howard's neighborhood unnoticed. Old brotherly bonds got me past the guard without a hitch. This was one of those quiet, upscale enclaves, single-family homes tucked away in leafy lanes. I sat on the curb near Howard's place, sipping beer straight from the bottle. For a second, I felt like some midlife loser who'd lost everything. But when I actually stood in front of Howard's door, I chickened out. The few bottles I bought to steel my nerves were almost empty. My head was starting to swim. That uneasy, stuck-in-the-middle feeling had nowhere to go. I pulled out my phone and just clicked on live streaming. Drunk and reckless. I didn't even think about what could go wrong. Even tried to get some real help from my so-called all-knowing fans. Mason's live. What's going on? It's midnight. Crushed by love. Was about to crash. But boom, unexpected treat. Mason's still up, watching the endless stream of chat messages. I have to admit, I was caught off guard. How come every single fan guesses this so spot on? You really know how to open the wrong damn kettle. I've got a friend who wants to ask everyone something. So, if the person he's crushing on gets mad, what should he do to make it right? This isn't me. Seriously, this is just a close friend of mine. As the screen flooded with "No way, you're faking it," I panicked and tried to clarify, only made things worse. The chat exploded. I get it, spamming like crazy. I was utterly stuck. So, what's the real answer then? I clutched a beer can and mechanically lifted it to my lips, thinking, yeah, internet advice is still useless. The last thing I remembered was forcing myself to end the stream on pure willpower. Then, booze hit hard, and lovesick brain took over. Howard was all I could think about. I staggered up to Howard's fancy front door, stumbling like a drunk ghost. Howard! Open up. Howard, please, open the door. I'm done wasting time outside. Just stop being mad and let me in, okay? A few minutes later, Howard cracked the door open, face dark with annoyance. What's going on at this hour? Can't you just shut up? Smells like alcohol. Come in. I didn't move. Just grinned at Howard, dazed and stupid. After a few more silent seconds, Howard finally gave up the standoff. What now? I pointed to my lips. You gotta kiss me before I go home. I promised my wife, remember? You forgot. Howard's pupils widened almost imperceptibly, like he'd just seen something too real to believe. What promise? What kiss? When did we even? Howard's face flushed a faint, uneasy pink. I leaned in toward Howard with no shame, just a few centimeters between us, like an invitation. Howard's breath hitched, sharp and uneven, tangled with mine. Even his voice was thick with that low, drunken flirtation. You're not gonna? My hopeful eyes dimmed slowly. Just when I was about to let go, the door slammed shut from inside. The door slammed shut from inside. Howard's face, still flushed, looked just like in my dreams. When I let go of Howard, my mind, still foggy from the shock, finally kicked in. Back at the last party, it was apparently Howard's first kiss. I sat on the couch, my eyes full of confusion. Howard was back to his usual self. Cool, detached, and utterly precise, like nothing in the world ever shook him, except for the flush still lingering on his lips and cheeks. Who'd have thought the strict Howard had just been caught up in a heated kiss? Mason, even madness has its limits. How much further are you going to take this? My dazed eyes strained to make sense of what Howard was saying. Madness? Yeah, I guess I am losing it. Just thinking about Howard makes me want to lose my mind. Is tormenting me really that much fun? Mason, I don't get what Howard's even saying. You're only doing this because you know I like you, aren't you? I'd already given up hope. You said you wanted me to be your boyfriend. I sat frozen on the couch. This was a Howard I'd never seen before. The Howard who'd finally let his guard down. Still nervous about feelings, just like anyone else. I believed you. But then you say it was all just a joke. If you really don't feel anything for me, why act so jealous in front of Mia? Howard's voice was stiff and awkward, cutting through the air like a blade straight into my ears. So sharp I nearly flinched, eyes wide in disbelief. Mason, you're wrong. Honestly, you've got serious acting talent. Playing with people's hearts. It must feel pretty damn good, right? Mason, the living room froze in silence, like the breath had been sucked out of every lung. Howard cracked open a beer and slammed it down his throat. His eyes glowed red at the corners from the burn of alcohol. I waved my hands frantically, utterly lost as to how things had spiraled like this. I didn't mean it like that. Just hear me out. My brain, numb from too much booze, went blank, so I just snatched the beer right out of Howard's grip. It's not like that. Not at all. I locked eyes with Howard, letting myself drown in them, repeating it over and over like a mantra. I like you. I really do. Like, really, really like you. For years. Ever since I was 16. Sometimes alcohol's a gift. It lets you say exactly what's in your chest when you're too drunk to lie. No filter, no shame, just truth. I grabbed Howard's hand and babbled for half an hour straight. From the first time I dreamt of him at 16, to his weird, distant fiancé who barely existed. Howard, I swear, I'm serious. You have to believe me. I've liked you since I was 16. God's my witness. When I heard about the engagement, it wrecked me. I wanted to be with you. I want to be your boyfriend. These aren't drunken lies. This is straight up truth. As real as it gets. Howard's face actually looked flustered for once. He blinked, barely believing it, and hesitated before asking, "You're serious?" I nodded firmly, pressing his hand against my racing heart. Thump, thump. Howard awkwardly looked away. "You're saying this isn't just because you're drunk? But you are drunk right now. Tomorrow, you'll wake up and pretend none of this happened." Howard's eyes were half lowered, the absence of his glasses making the quiet despair in his gaze impossible to miss. Panicked, not knowing what else to do. Record it. Have video proof. I won't deny a thing. In an instant, my brain snapped into focus. Finally, the perfect idea. That night, Howard was stuck listening to over an hour of my heart-wrenching, long-hidden love story. By the end, I was clinging to Howard like my life depended on it. "Can you be my boyfriend? Howard, I really like you. Like, really, really like." I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small, delicate box. "If you'll say yes, will you wear this ring?" Howard stared at me, stunned. "Mason, you." Howard's face turned bright red. Who gives a ring right after confessing like that? Alcohol blurred my senses. Everything faded except Howard's furious expression. I fixed on his lips, moving slowly open and shut, dazed. "Can I kiss you?" "What?" Howard didn't pull away. I grinned, pulling him into my arms. "Howard, be my boyfriend? I'll treat you so well, promise." A reluctant smile tugged at Howard's face. "Let go of me. You're tickling me." "Then answer me first." "You don't say yes. I'm not letting go." The ring on the table glinted under the light. On Howard's long fingers, it looked perfect, like it was made for him. I couldn't take my eyes off it. I idly twirled Howard's slender fingers, couldn't put them down. "Mine." Howard gave a quiet hum. The buzz from the alcohol faded fast. Exhaustion crashed over me like a wave. "You're such a mess. You want to hop in the shower? You reek of booze." Just before I slipped into sleep, I caught Howard's lips moving, like he was about to kiss me. That familiar hangover fog hit. I blinked a few times trying to focus. The room's cool gray tones, this wasn't my place. More like Howard's. I slumped my head back and slapped my temples hard. My mind was a blank, the last thing I could recall being the moment I'd knocked on Howard's front door. My face went pale. Did anything actually happen? As I stared into space, trying to piece it together, Howard pushed the door open with a glass of water. "You're awake. Here, drink this. You were wrecked last night." I took the glass, guilt flaring, stared at Howard's calm face as I sipped. Judging by Howard's reaction, nothing serious happened yesterday, but still I couldn't tell. Howard was always like this, icy, composed, unreadable. I hesitated before speaking. "What is it?" "Yesterday My voice cut off mid-sentence. On Howard's ring finger was a ring, one I knew like the back of my hand. Howard followed my gaze, then gave me a little wave of his obvious ring. "So, did you change your mind about yesterday's gift? Now regretting it and wanting it back?" Her eyes flickered with mischief, Howard's gaze teasing in return. "No, no way. Not at all. I'm just a little stunned. Can't believe it. Waking up to find my own ring on his finger. Honestly, it's pretty mind-blowing." Howard let out a quiet sigh. "Knew you'd forget." The living room suddenly played back the video of my confession from yesterday. Howard sipped his water, still calm enough to critique my performance. "This crying bit? Not convincing at all. Mason's gonna need more practice. And this part? I nearly cracked a tooth from the kiss. 0 stars. I sat next to Howard, feeling mortified yet sneaking glances at him anyway. Last night was wild. I didn't expect myself to be this bold. I just went for it, pressing myself against Howard and blurted out my feelings. Who else even does that? The thought of finally having my longtime crush as my boyfriend has me buzzing with excitement. I couldn't help but reach over and brush my fingers against Howard's hand. What are you doing? Still that same cool, composed look. Like he'd been born in a suit, even in his plain loungewear. That effortless elegance of Howard's. Total head rush. Boyfriend. Howard gave a faint hum, barely audible. You're really my boyfriend, right? Not messing with me, after all this, after the shock. It's all I can do to keep asking, over and over, to make sure it's not some dream. Howard gave me one of those looks. So full of layers, felt like he was reading my soul. If your ears or brain are playing tricks on you, I can get you a doctor right now. Howard ruffled my hair like he was petting a cat. You know what? Your boyfriend's got nothing going for him except the cash. But I promise, I'll fix you. I yanked Howard close and wrapped my arms around him. No doctor needed. My only cure is Howard. That afternoon, after finalizing talks with the company, I finally dropped my official announcement on Weibo. The trending list lit up instantly, right at the top. I liked comments from a bunch of CP fans too. I'd show them who's really in love with Howard. Everyone said I was showing off like a peacock on parade, trying to impress. I just smirked. None of them had any idea how good my wife smelled. Honey, they're saying I look like a flashy peacock. Howard kissed me softly on the cheek. Don't worry, he said with a smile. I kinda love it.